Good day to everyone. Today, we will be discussing about the philosophical perspective of the self. Before we discuss the different philosophical perspective about the self, first, we will define what philosophy means. Philosophy is a combination of two Greek words, philia, which means love, and sophia, which means wisdom. Therefore, philosophy means love of wisdom. Philosophy is a particular set of ideas about the knowledge, truth, the nature, and meaning of life. Philosophy is an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truths about themselves, the world in which they live, and their relationships to the world and to each other. The nature of the self is a topic of interest among philosophers, and each have their own views. Socrates was the first philosopher to ever engage in a systematic questioning about the self. Hence, the method of inquiry called Socratic questioning was named after him. It is also known as dialectic method. This method is the search for the correct and proper definition of a thing. It is the foundation of critical thinking, a method of questioning the challenges of accuracy and completeness of thinking in a way that acts to move people towards their ultimate goal. He is also known for his quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." He believed that his mission in life was to seek the highest knowledge. In our everyday life, for example, gigising tayo sa umaga para gumaya, papasok sa trabaho o paaralan, uuwi sa oras ng uwian, kakain sa oras ng pagkain, matutulog. Paulit-ulit natin itong ginagawa sa araw-araw. Gigising, papasok, matutulog, gigising, papasok, matutulog. Nagmistola na tayo mga robot na nakaprograma na sa ating sistema. Nakalimutan na nating mabuhay. We hardly give ourselves time to think reasonably and logically about our lives and how to live them. And this quote wants to remind us. Imulat natin ang mata, mag-explore tayo, itigil natin yung mga ginagawa natin, at marami tayong makikita sa mundo. Stop going with the flow and play safe. Take the road that has never been taken, and you'll make a difference. He also states that the soul is immortal. He asserted that death is not the end of existence. Death is simply the separation of the soul from the body. Plato was a student of Socrates. He supported his teacher's idea that the soul is immortal. He also expounded on Socrates' idea of soul, suggesting that the soul has three components, which have to work harmoniously to be able to live in a virtuous and just life. These are the rational soul, the spirited soul, and the appetitive soul. The rational soul governs the human thought processes. This refers to the way how we think. The spirited soul is responsible for our emotions and feelings. Ito yung anger, love, joy, happiness, sadness. And the appetitive soul, which controls humans' basic drives and desire, such as hunger, thirst. He also states that if human beings do not live in accordance with their nature and passion, the result will be injustice. Naniniwala siya na kaya tayo nabuhay sa mundong ito ay dahil meron tayong purpose na dapat gampanan. Next, Saint Augustine of Hippo. Saint Augustine argued that a man is of bifurcated nature. Ibig sabihin, it is divided into two parts, wherein there is a part of man called soul, which dwells in the world and yearns to be with the divine, and the another part called the body, which is capable of reaching immortality. The body is bound to die on earth, and the soul is to anticipate living eternally in a realm of spiritual bliss in communication with God. He also described that humankind is created in the image and likeness of God. Ayon kay Saint Augustine, nilikha ang tao na kawangis ng ating Panginoon. Naniniwala din siya na God is transcendent and everything created by God, who is all good, is good. According to him, those who know most of God will come closest to understanding the true nature of the world, As God is the source of all truth, sinabi din niya na lahat ng nilikha ng Panginoon ay mabuti. And the source of evil is the act of man's free will. Halimbawa, ang labis na kahumalingan sa isang bagay may lead to greed o pagkagahaman. Bakit nangyayari ito? Because man loves the wrong things which he believes will give him happiness. Ngunit ang tunay na kasiyahan ay matatagpuan lamang sa ating Panginoon. René Descartes. René Descartes is known as the father of modern philosophy, also conceived of the human as having a body and mind. He is famous for quoting the line, "I think, therefore I am." He claimed that there is so much that we should doubt, and if something is so clear and lucid as not to be doubted, then that's the only time one should believe. The strategy is to doubt and not to believe any claim is false or could be false. He recognizes that his senses might be deceiving him now. Hindi lahat na nakikita natin at nararanasan natin ay totoo at dapat na nating paniwalaan. Minsan kasi nabubulagan tayo at nalilinlang tayo sa mga nakikita natin. There is always a difference in the facts, ideas, and opinion. We should always exercise our questioning mind. John Locke. John Locke believed that the self, or personal identity, is constructed primarily from sense experience, which shape and mold the self throughout a person's life. According to him, the human mind at birth is a blank slate or tabula rasa. We acquire knowledge through ideas produced by the experience, and from that experience, we learn and discover relationship that may exist between them. Sabi nga ng iba, you'll never know unless you tried. Halimbawa, sa paglalakad. Bago ka matutong lumakad, kailangan mo munang humakbang. Sa ganoong paraan, natututo ang tao. The more that we experience something, the more na matututo tayo at mamumulat ang ating kaisipan sa mga bagong kaalaman. David Hume. David Hume is a Scottish philosopher. Like John Locke, he is also an empiricist. Ano nga ba ang mga empiricists? Empiricists are those who believes in using methods based on what is experienced or seen rather than on theory. As an empiricist, he believes that one can know only what comes from the sense and experience. He argues that the self is only a bundle of constantly changing perceptions passing through a theater of our minds. Naniniwala sila that knowledge can only be attained through experience. In short, they believe that experience is the best teacher. Immanuel Kant. According to him, we humans have both an inner and an outer self which unify to give us consciousness. The inner self is comprised of our psychological state and our rational intellect. The outer self includes our sense and the physical world. He believed that knowledge is the result of human understanding applied to sense experience. Our minds actively sort, organize, relate, and synthesize the fragmented, fluctuating collection of sense data that our sense organs take in. Halimbawa, may nakita kang pile of puzzle pieces. At first, they would initially appear to be a random collection of items, unrelated to one another and containing no meaning to you. Pero once na simulan mo siyang buuin at makita mo ang totoong imahe nito, doon mo makikita ang tunay na kahulugan niya. According to Kant, this meaning-constructing activity is precisely what our minds are doing all of the time, taking the raw data of experience and actively synthesizing it into the familiar, orderly, meaningful world in which we live. Sigmund Freud. According to him, the mind consists of three layers: the id, or the pleasure principle, the ego, or the reality principle, and the superego. First, id, or the pleasure principle. This refers to the immediate satisfaction and is not hindered by societal expectations. For example, hunger and thirst. Next, the second layer is ego, or the reality principle. It is the component of personality that is responsible for dealing with reality, which strives to satisfy the id's desire in realistic and socially appropriate ways. Halimbawa, habang tayo ay nasa klase, bigla kang nakaramdam ng gutom. You find yourself growing increasingly hungry habang tumatagal. While the id might compel you to jump out from your seat and rush to the break room for a snack, the ego guides you to sit quietly and wait for the class to end. And lastly, the superego. The superego located between the first two. This is the last structure to develop and is primarily dependent on learning the difference between what is right and what is wrong. Why? Gilbert Ryle. Gilbert Ryle is an English philosopher known for his quote, I act, therefore I am. He stated that the self is the way people behave. Kung paano tayo kumilos, kung paano tayo magsalita, at kung paano tayo makipagkapwa-tao. According to him, what truly matters is the behaviors that a person manifests in his day-to-day life. He suggests that the self is not an entity one can locate and analyze, but simply the convenient name that people use to refer to and all the behaviors that people make. Patricia and Paul Churchland. According to them, the self is the brain. The brain exhibits self-control. When we are conscious and make decisions, there are just functions of the physical brain. It is responsible for human thoughts, feelings, and action. What and who the person is. For example, kapag gumagawa tayo ng desisyon, how we respond sa mga nangyayari sa paligid natin, and how we perceive ourselves, lahat ng ito ay determined by our neurons, hormones, and overall genetic makeup. Maurice Merleau-Ponty. He has been known as a philosopher of the body. He made use of the concept of the body schema in discussions that range across a number of cognitive and existential issues. The focus is on the relationship between the self-experience and the experience of the other people. For him, the mind and the body are so intertwined that they cannot be separated from one another. Naniniwala siya na the living body, his thoughts, emotions, and experience are all one.